Welcome to Unleashing the Power of DataTables. My name is Dawn Hetty, and I'm with Saline Consulting. I've been building FileMaker apps for a long time, and I'm excited about what you can now do with DataTables. How would you like to have portals and list views with dynamic row heights? Or reorder columns by just dragging and dropping them? Selectively hide and show columns, and have portal rows that dynamically reveal more data. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is a demonstration file that I've prepared for this session, and I will make that available on salineconsulting.com website in just a little while. So I've got a couple of demonstrations here. The first is a portal. What appears to be a portal, but it's actually a web viewer that's using DataTables. Notice that I can scroll through. I can losing the cursor. So I can sort on the different columns. I can choose to show more info. I'm going to slide down. So if I do that, notice that I have these little green buttons, and that's because I've told it to display more columns and they just don't fit in the width. So instead, it gives me this little button and I can open it. When I do, I see more data for that specific record. So I'm seeing the Social Security number, date of birth, and some notes. Let's look at that one, look at this one. Notice that when it has more notes, it takes the space it needs to display it all. Pretty cool. I have a few configuring things you can see here too. So if you prefer striped, that's been set in the bundle. So now look, you have to look really closely, but there's a little, every other row has light gray. And so even when I show more data, it has light gray. Now let's look at a list view. This one looks just a little bit different because I'm using a different theme. So like the header bar is dark. Notice I can flip through the 400 records pretty quickly. I can still sort on the different columns. If I wanted to, instead of showing all the records, however many I have here, I could instead paginate. So it's reloading the data with pagination, and I can even show some information down here about the found set. So I'm showing that I'm displaying the first 10. Notice that when you choose pagination, you get this navigation, so you can move through the sets of 10 in the data. You could also show 25, 50, or 100. Those are the defaults that are in here. I can show 25, but my problem is it can't quite fit. If I do minus, you can see it all then. That was command minus, so I zoomed out just a little bit. Let's see. I go back to here. I can even zoom back in so you can see better. If I hold down the shift key, I can even drag and drop columns. So, it's pretty cool. So of course we're doing this with data tables. What exactly are data tables? Well, data tables are a jQuery JavaScript library, and it has a whole bunch of features you can see here. It's open source, so you can use it inside your applications for free. So let's take a look at datatables.net. It's very well documented. They have a manual, they have tons of examples. Let's see, go here and you can see how you would do it with all kinds of different features. Different kinds of pagination. different styles, different themes. Um, lots of great stuff here. Um, Very good manual. Now I'm not going to say that this is easy. Um, if you want to get past kind of the basic package, and I'm going to show you an easy way to get started here, but you do have to kind of drill in and learn this and figure out how to do things. Okay, so let's take a look at what's involved. The mechanics of the whole thing. So as you saw, you need a web viewer, and that web viewer needs to have an object name assigned to it. And you need to know what that object name is because you will use it later when it comes time to call it. Number two, you're going to need a place to store your code. So you have HTML, you're going to have some JavaScript and libraries either referenced as a link or the entire embedded code of the library, and you're going to have some CSS code, and you need a place to store it. So you could store a lot of it right inside that web viewer definition. That would be possible, but I don't recommend it. Some other developers will choose to put it in a text block right on the layout offside, but the downside of this is now the code is only on that layout. Um, you could store it in tables and fields, and we do that also at Sliant. But the fourth way is to just load it in, to have all that information inside the script itself, and you can call it like a request. And that's the way that I'm going to show you today. Number three, you need a method to gather your data. So you could loop through the records and build up the JSON that you're going to pass to the code base that way. You could use field calculations right on, like say the company record or the contacts record. You could store that records JSON there, and then you could gather it up maybe with a list function or some other way. You could perform FileMaker execute data API, that new script step that would allow you to make a request to the data API. That works even when you're offline, it'll work locally, but you can call it as a perform script on server and get, a little bit of a performance boost that way. You could also do a replace field step and replace it into a global field, and that's an interesting one also. So in our demonstrations, I'm going to show you the second two options. We're going to do one of each. And finally, for number four, you're going to need a way to load your code. If the code is inside a web viewer, well, of course, then just the web viewer being on the layout is going to force it to load. But my preferred way is to script it so that you build up your code and then you do a call with set web viewer to pass it to code and load it. And then you can use on record load layout trigger. Or you can also call it with a button to refresh it. So let's take a look under the hood. Okay, so we have a web viewer. As I said, the web viewer has to have an object name. In this case, I call it craft web viewer because that's the way I'm loading my data. So each of the demos has a folder that's comprised of 3 scripts. The first script is the one that's called by the button, and it's also called by a script trigger assigned to the on record load. And this script will call the other 2. So the first thing it's going to do is set a bunch of variables that are for the configuration. So for things I can pass into the bundle of code, it's setting some values. And then in this case, for the portal, we had options. We had this button for show more. So it calls a different request when it's showing more or showing less. So each request has, which I would have to write like FileMaker code with quotes and ands and things. Instead, it can be a lot easier when you have a chunk of code to use insert text, and I'm loading it into a variable instead of a field. And the insert text looks like this. So this way, I could have plain text that I might have stored in a field or something, but I can just store it here. And this is defining the labels and which of the columns will be visible. So we've got ID, first name, last name, you get the idea. Notice that in this case, full name isn't being displayed. When we're showing more, we show the individual first, middle, and last. But when we're showing just a little bit, we'll flip that. And instead of showing those 3 columns, we'll show the concatenated name. We'll also show a concatenated address instead of the individual address. Part 2 of the script is to compile our JSON. So for the portal demo, I've chosen to compile it by using that replace field contents. And this is super cool. It never occurred to me that you could do this. I learned it from Matt Petrowski on FileMaker magazine. And I have a link to his very cool videos. He goes into DataTables, a deep dive into it. There's a 2-video set. The reason that it's not just right here is because I have the choice of doing it run locally or run on the server. So I can use perform script on server. But it's calling the same thing. It's just a matter where it's going to get done. So that script that it's calling is this one, and it's actually pretty short. We just pass in the company number for the record, so that way we find the record. We want to do that because if we're calling it on the server, it does not have our context. We have to pass in where we want it to go. It finds all the context for that company. And then we're going to just do a replace field contents into a global field. So remember, even though it's a global field, it's going to be called for the entire stack of records. And usually replace field contents is about putting a different value in each record. But in this case, it gets called for each record, and we can use the list function to concatenate this next record's chunk of JSON onto what it's already added to the table data, the global field. So it's just concatenating this chunk of JSON. The JSON is just built as an array of arrays. So this way, it doesn't include the field names. It only includes, we just know that column 0, which is the first column for JSON, is going to be the ID, and number 1 will be the first name, and so on. It's less data than having all the fields and field labels in there too. And then this little bit of code is just to add the comma at the end if we know we are not yet on the last record. So when we are on the last record, we won't put a comma at the end. So we end up with this list of JSON with comma at the end of each row. And back to our loader. So we do that, we get back the data, and then finally we're going to call the other script, which is what we're calling our bundle. And the bundle contains all the code. You could write the bundle yourself. It's just a script. It just has code. But we have a tool for you that can make it that much easier. It's called Carafe. You can use one of a couple methods, but I'm using Carafe Kitchen. So you can get to Carafe from carafe.fm is the website. It's an open source project that Sline's created, and you can just download either the kitchen or the add-on version or the kitchen version. I'm working with the kitchen version today. In Beth Bennett's session on working with Google Maps, she'll show you that in context with add-ons. So, and just for your information, Carafe has a bunch of add-ons like Google Maps and all kinds of different things. These are like little demonstration bundles, and the bundle is a whole chunk of JavaScript code that's ready to go for you, and it'll render this. So it provides a great example. Here's what Carafe Kitchen looks like. it'll have all the different bundles, and then you can even preview them, and it's the place that's storing the code. So you've got the CSS and the JavaScript stored here. The beauty of it is you can change this source, you can duplicate it like I've done here to create custom bundles. But if you just start with this bundle that comes with it, you can choose deploy. This uses a plugin, a free plugin, to load and then put it on your clipboard. And all I have to do is click this, it copies to my clipboard. It takes a moment because it's building a big script. And then, let's see, I'll cancel that. Then I come back over to my application and I'm just going to paste. And Carafe has put that script code with the bundle right here on my clipboard. And then you don't make changes to the bundle. If you need to make changes, you go back to the kitchen and make changes. But it gives you everything you see here for loading this bundle of code. It gives you parameters. It even gives you sample data. And then here is all the embedded code. It's using that insert text, and because you can only have 30,000 characters per insert text step, it's broken it up into chunks. So it's handled that for you. It's compressed the white space, so it's just all together. It's not very legible here, but that's okay. We want it to load as quick as possible. So it'll just run. So if I go to, I had previously pasted this script. It's right here. And I'm going to take my loader. So this is the script I made to call that bundle. And if instead of calling the bundle I had previously, I'm going to change it to just call this new one that you just saw me paste in. And I'll save that script. Okay, so now I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to hide kitchen. I'm going to go to my Carafe demo, and you can see that it already loaded. All this script was doing was I had created it by copies couple of lines of sample data out of here, right here. So I loaded up my parameters in the script here, and then I call the bundle. That's how quick it is to get in. So all you have to do is concatenate your data and you're good to go. So, but for this demo, I also wanted to make custom bundles so they could do more features. And you can do that for DataTables specifically. You can do it for other bundles too, but for DataTables, they have this cool download editor. It lets you pick and choose from the menu of different extensions and APIs that are supported, and style frameworks that are supported, and you choose which ones you want, and then you can just download that code and paste it into the kitchen. So you can either, your code, you don't have to put it in the kitchen, you can build your own script. You could just call links, and the reference I made to Matt Petrowski, his examples do just a link out instead of embedding all the code right inside the script for offline use. If you know your file is going to be hosted always, then you could just do it this way with a link. It's easy to do. The one thing you have to watch is some of these different features. You can't just have everything. You have to pick a framework. You have to know which things are compatible with it. And it has this great page that shows you feature compatibility. Most things are compatible, but there's a few that aren't. If you hover over the X's, it tells you up here why it doesn't work. So pretty cool. Okay, so other use cases. I wanted to show you a few more things that we've been able to do with DataTables. So these are just some screenshots. A few are little videos that show you what we've been able to do. So notice here that this one has I want to show you this area. So if I look here with the line, I can see what things are included in the WebViewer here. So these buttons are have been added to the WebViewer. So now you can expand all. So it will show you for any of these tasks, it could have more information. And in this case, notice the instructions are actually a child record, and it's able to show it. For this one, it's a big layout, and you'll notice that this part down here is all a WebViewer. The rest of it is native FileMaker. We're on a FileMaker tab. We look in here, it's actually showing us a sub-summary. That's being built by the data tables, where it's showing you the summary portions and repeating the little header per week. Okay, now this one, it's a very big layout. It was performing slowly to try to show you these color-coded different things. It wouldn't scroll fast enough and load fast enough. So with experimenting, they came up with a way with data tables, and July's actually written a great blog post. I have a reference to it in just a minute that tells you about how we did it. So this is the portion. You can see the border here I've added just to show you what's the web viewer, and this stuff above it is just FileMaker. And you know, it scrolls really quickly. So by coming up with some mechanisms that you've perhaps pre-cached some data, you can come up with something that will perform very well. So resources. The first one are resources to data tables. So I showed you the web page. These are 3 specific places within the datatables.net for examples, that compatibility one and the download one that you're going to need. Style references. Since I was using some of the styling kits for the portal, I used Bulma. For the list view, I used Bootstrap 4. So those are different styling themes, and I found these to be helpful references to learn the specific class things and stuff that I could change with tables, and how to render it. Those things are a little bit different with each style than just the default data table styling. And I told you about the fantastic FileMaker magazine. They've got these great videos. These specific ones are open. They're made available to you. FileMaker magazine, it's a subscription, and it's well worth it. You'll learn a lot. And then finally, let's see, we have resources for Carafe. So like I said, open source tool. I think there's something like 80 different sample bundles. So go up there and look. It'll give you a lot of ideas. And finally, Slant blog. So there's a few references. How to build faster list views by July Bell. That was the one for that last list example I was telling you about. I also want to thank Beth Bennett and Mislav Kos, who were developers, tech leads and developers on those projects, for sharing those screenshots and the little videos for the different work they've done. This one is by Wim, JavaScript integration in FileMaker 19. I didn't talk about it, but it's a great reference for this kind of stuff. And using craft bundles, editing JSON in FileMaker. This is a particular bundle that makes it easier to see the bundle. So Jesse's created it. He, along with Jeremiah Smaller, Jesse Levere and Jeremiah Smaller, are the developers of Craft. Some of our other people on our team have worked on it, but they're the primary two. So thank you very much. Hope you have a great day.